What is going on, guys? Hello and welcome in to Nebraska football at the voice of college football. My name is Justin Adams, as you all know me here. For people who are new to the channel, my name is Justin Adams. You can follow me over on X at the H-Town Husker. And today we're just going to go over a little bit of my thoughts on the early National Signing Day period, break down a little bit of kind of what Matt Rule went over in his press conferences, recapping the day, give some takes on his philosophies and what it seems like his recruiting, strategy is, and how that affects in not only 2024 but 2025, seeing as 2024 was a fairly drama-free in a good way early National Signing Day. I think I saw somebody say that everybody was signed by 11 a.m. and everybody was in the boat. Everybody who was expected to sign, and we even had some flips of guys who were commit elsewhere. So we'll get into that a little bit, and then we're going to get into some of your comments. Jackson, what's up? Bone Leg Corn Fed already in here. Appreciate y'all guys showing up, and everybody who's hopping in here. So we'll just go ahead and go into a little bit of what I mentioned with Matt Rule's kind of philosophy and my takeaways from kind of what he said in his press conference about it. So one of the main things that really is a point of note is Matt Rule is new to NIL. So he was coaching for the Panthers, and just got back last year. It was a short little off season, so he wasn't in the full thick of things, and as far as the transfer portal goes in the NIL. Self-admittedly by him, he was very much open about that, and it's taken on a life of its own. It's each year it seems to get a little bit more complex. The numbers and the figures rise, and the money, and it's one of those things that's trying to keep up with the Joneses. And Matt Rule's philosophy before is recruiting and development. So him being able to come in and be this successful, apologies, but or why an Iowa picture pops up when it does, but with his philosophy and stuff like that, with recruiting and his development, him being able to take this by the horns and be able to kind of adapt to it and be successful at it is very important, because you have guys like Dabo and Kirby Smart who really are chastised by a lot of their fan bases for not necessarily wanting to partake in paying the big money and stuff like that. And over the course of time, we're seeing talent dissipate from teams and move elsewhere because they're just getting better opportunities and better money elsewhere. So that is the name of the game now. People are talking about, almost in a negative way, how players are going somewhere else for the money or this, that, and the other. But that's the world we live in. That's NIL. That it's a business at the end of the day. And if any of us got a better opportunity and more money and stuff like that, most of us would take it too. And these are 18, well, not even 18-year-old kids in some instances. So yeah. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into a little bit of what my breakdown was of what he said. So one of the key takeaways in what seems to be the biggest successful part of his philosophy in recruiting, it's very, very structured, right? And there's a system in place. And he talks about that not only within himself, but with the rest of the coaching staff as well. There's a consistency, and there's a point to how they recruit, and that is indicative of how they're going to retain a lot of these players. It's the same messaging across the board. You're not having Evan Cooper go out and talk to a guy. He's getting told one thing, and then they show up on campus and another coach is telling him another thing. It's consistency. And what that does is, even if there is churn with the coaching staff, during the offseason, et cetera, those things won't impact the team as much, because those philosophies will never change. He's really making it a point to ingrain his philosophies in these coaches. And that's why he brought a lot of guys that I think, he had built relationships with already, because they kind of already know his philosophy. They're able to hit the ground running and stuff like that. So, and I'll get into a little bit of y'all's comments and questions here in a little bit after I kind of go over my takeaways. Sorry, I'm drinking some water. I got a little cotton mouth. Okay. Another thing that was a keynote that he mentioned was, unity in the athletic department, or kind of alluded to unity within the athletic department. He mentioned taking these players to other games, watching Jazz Shelley score 25, with Dylan Raiola in attendance. He mentioned Baker Mayfield texting him about going to Nebraska volleyball games. So he's very much in tune with the other, um, you know, parts of the athletic department, and big supporter of those. And in getting those guys, he expressed the importance of getting those guys into those games, to those games, and seeing, that environment, those atmospheres, the support, and, just being able to partake in those things. So, the consistency is one of the biggest things. Another thing that I noticed when looking at the details and the numbers, he really is a proponent, and he mentioned this too, is developing offensive line, which is, understated in the terms of offensive line cohesiveness, because when you try to grow an offensive line or build an offensive line through the transfer portal, it's much harder to do than trying to go build a wide receiver core through the portal, running back room, et cetera. Because with offensive line, a lot of those guys have to take time to kind of grow as a unit. The offensive line, more than any other, is a unit, right? And those guys need the cohesiveness. They need to know who's to the right, who's to the left, develop together, and then build a strong foundation that way. And, I'll get into a little bit of the offer numbers and stuff like that in a little bit, to go into more detail about how big of a focus he's putting into the offensive line. Another thing too is he mentioned, the first couple years being very, very heavy on, recruiting as much as possible and building a foundation and a base for this team. And that goes again to his development. So it's like he's front loading these guys, with the young recruiting talent, and then he's gonna, kind of implement transfer portal guys as he goes. He spoke about camps, the importance of bringing these guys into camps, sixth grade, seventh grade, and just being able to see them year after year, them being able to interact with the coaches year after year, and kind of building those relationships that way. It's a very, very the way he recruits is very unique to what we've seen in the past. And I think that's why we're not only seeing success in the recruiting trail, we're also seeing success in the lack of players leaving via the transfer portal. That goes back to what I said about the messaging and the consistency, and really having these guys bought in. The big takeaways, Florida and Texas heavily recruited, not only this year, but in 2025 looking forward. And again, I'll get into the numbers a little bit. Florida, Texas, and Nebraska were the top 3 recruited states this year. And Texas and Florida 1 and 2 next year as well. So with Texas, we saw when, Matt Rule came on board and started to really kind of build those connections in Texas and bring in guys that he knew from the high school ranks in Texas. We figured that his goal there was to try to build that pipeline base back into the state of Texas. That is one of the places that you really need to recruit, because the competition there is so, high level. And, 184 of the NFL players are out of Texas. It's the most players in the NFL are out of the state of Texas. And Florida's, no different. It's right there third, California's second, I believe. So it's very important, not only that he's recruiting those big states, but also he mentioned going places that other people don't want to go, finding Roger Gradney, at somewhat of a smaller school, going places that people don't want to go, and finding those diamonds in the rough. He's still a big proponent on finding the diamonds in the rough and really kind of honing in on those guys, on top of also going after the big names. So it seems Matt Rule wants to bring in, not only guys that can come in and make an impact now, the 4 or 5 star guys, but he still wants to stay true to what he does and how he's always operated, and still attack recruiting the same way in development. And that says a lot about how much trust he has in his system, and how much faith he has in his system being successful, even in the current, stage of college football with the NIL and, everything kind of being crazy in the wild, wild west. And it's just like, who can pay who can, promise this, who can do that. It's, he's still finding a way to find that balance, which is going to be big going forward. And also just mentioned, with the NIL, it's not like the NFL. There's no contracts. He mentioned players coming in and telling them offers from schools, other schools, these offers are coming in and giving them monetary amounts of what they're offering and stuff like that, and they're being transparent about it. But then at the same time, not knowing what numbers are real, or not knowing if they're being authentic with these guys and really promising them they're authentic, what they're going to be able to give them and stuff like that. So that was very key. He brought up the 1890 Collective. If y'all have not followed them on Twitter, I do recommend y'all following 1890 on Twitter. They are the NIL Collective for Nebraska, as I'm sure most of you know. But they were given the donation amounts and the totals, and I believe it was $840K by National Signing Day in just a 5-day period. So, and along with that, talked about Nebraska's own portal, and I don't think enough people pay attention to this as well, because we do get caught up in kind of the adrenaline of like seeing that big 4 or 5-star land, but expressing the importance of returning these guys as our own portal, the guys that we already have on the team, the guys that would, if entering the transfer portal, would be getting offers from these big schools, and some of the times we don't step back and think about stuff like that, about the talent we already have. We have, talent as it is. And not only the talent these guys came in as 3-4 stars, we like to focus on like what they came in as. What would they be as a transfer? What would they be? What kind of offers would they be getting elsewhere? And that's really how we're able to determine a lot of these players that we have now, their value, and stuff like that. So I would say probably one of the, biggest surprises from what it sounds like, it seems like the coaching staff really had, an idea that the quarterback room would be retained, Chuba, Harburg, and then Kalen coming in, and then of course, Raiola. So with that being said, I'm unsure how Chuba departing affects, how they handle, the next, National Signing Day, and when January comes around and we have people on campus and stuff like that. Not sure how that's going to work, because I believe from the sounds of it that they wanted this quarterback room to be as it was, with Chuba, Harburg, Kalen, and Raiola. So it remains to be seen just how that impact will go, and what kind of Matt Rule has to say on that. It just seemed like the staff wasn't really expecting Chuba to depart. And Chuba, man, wish him nothing but the best. He, battled through injury. He never really folded in the face of competition and bringing guys in here and stuff like that. And, due to situations he was put in, he actually played pretty well, all things considered. So, best to Chuba in the future. I think the news is, he's looking at Boise State. So we'll see how that pays off, as long as he's not coming in the Big Ten and we don't have to play against him. I wish him nothing but the best. Let's get into another thing he mentioned about with the quarterback room. When he came on board, and even in recent weeks, he mentioned not wanting a guy who had 1 year of eligibility left. And I think that's very important to keep in mind when, we're going into, when we had McCord on campus and we had Raiola on campus, and it seems Matt Rule just really wants to build the quarterbacks and quote unquote their way, is what he said. Doesn't want it a quick fix, right? It's a cultural type of thing where they bring these quarterbacks and they develop them the way they want them. Jeff Sims, they wanted to get his completion percentage up to 65%. As we know, nowhere near that. But that's just part of what we're talking about with the development of the quarterbacks, and what we can expect going forward is probably still recruiting, recruiting quarterbacks heavy. And if they do go after the transfer portal, trying to find these younger guys moving forward. So um he also stated that with the Raiola situation, and there was tons and tons of speculation about what happened with Georgia, what happened with Raiola, and there is this big conversation, and I believe the conversation immediately goes to this, and I don't know why, but being afraid of competition is what everybody floats around there. And if we just attached being afraid of competition, we could attach that to literally every single person that moves, in the portal. It's one of those things. It's a very blanketed statement, but what does that mean, being afraid of competition? Just because you think you can be in a better situation elsewhere and you have a quicker route to success doesn't necessarily mean you're afraid of competition. It just means this opportunity's there. I think I can thrive best in this situation, and that's all there is to it. We're in a day and age where college football is different. So sitting there and using the old school, you know, ideals and beliefs, those have to transition now. And this just kind of is what it is. I know he went to, three high schools or whatever it was, or four high schools, three different schools. But when Matt Rule spoke on what happened with Dylan, um, he said, he didn't recruit Dylan after he committed to Georgia. He didn't continue to recruit. He said he doesn't really do that most of the time once they commit, but he will keep in touch with them. He will, keep that relationship, and as he did with Dylan. And then he said Dylan kind of contacted him and said, this is my purpose. Dylan, really spoke about how much it meant to him and his family, and that just kind of he felt this in his heart, And when listening to Dylan, in the interviews and stuff like that, speak on that, it seems genuine and authentic. Dylan seems like a very authentic, straightforward guy. Matt Rule talked about, doing, giving autographs to young kids and taking the time to hang out with them, etc. And, I think he gets a lot of flack for the movement, but that wasn't all necessarily on him. It was to put him in the best situation possible. The reason he moved from Arizona to Georgia wasn't because to run away from competition. It was because he wanted to be closer to where he was anticipating playing, but also much stiffer competition in Georgia than there is in Arizona, especially at Buford. Buford is a school on a national level. And so he wanted, to go over there and play the best. And so you can't knock the guy for that. And I think a lot of that just comes from sour grapes of opposing fan bases that may not, they want to discredit him and say, oh, y'all aren't going to keep him past this year. He may not even make it out of spring ball. There's too many connections in place here for Nebraska to lose him, and especially with, his uncle being on, the offensive line coach, his dad being a legacy player here. Like, I'm 99% sure that Dylan is locked in here and he is going to stay. That is evident also by how little players have hit the portal for Nebraska this year. We've lost some, a couple people to the draft. We've lost a select few to the transfer portal, but in general, compared to the rest of the country, it was a very mild, as far as churn and exiting of the roster goes. It was a very, very mild number of losses. Now, here recently, he mentioned Snodgrass won't be returning because he's going to focus on getting his degree in agriculture. And then Ethan Piper currently is undecided at the moment. So it's kind of a wait and see with Ethan Piper. So we'll see kind of what that looks like on the offensive line and if Ethan Piper comes back, because Ethan Piper does have another year of eligibility left. One of the biggest things that I think Nebraska fans in general, and we were all talking about at the end of the season and when we were looking at, McCord and Raiola, was the offensive fit. And I know a lot of people mentioned, McCord wasn't a good fit for the offense. Raiola is he a good fit for the offense? Judging by the way Satterfield has run his offenses in the past, okay? He has always been a guy, who likes to huddle. He says huddling is the heart and soul of football. That is probably not going to go away with Satterfield. He likes to huddle. He likes to get big and physical. He likes to attack, the physical run game and get a downhill run game going, but he also likes to attack the deep ball. He likes to push the ball downfield in his offenses. At Carolina had 4,100 passing yards, 1,700 rushing yards. At Baylor, they averaged 250 passing yards, 165 rushing yards. Very, very balanced, and they use their tight ends a ton. And that's something I'll get to here in just a second. He mentioned the San Francisco 49ers model about 4 times in his press conference. And what he was getting at with that San Francisco model of offense, he's talking about positionless players. And it was interesting to hear Matt Rule talk about positionless players because, when we got Satterfield and I was looking into Satterfield, he mentioned that a lot as well, about how he likes these positionless players. That's one thing to factor in when we're looking at the numbers of recruits at each position is these guys, even on the defensive side of the ball, aren't necessarily going to be playing that position. We have safeties who plan to get bigger and play linebacker. On the defense, we have the rover and we have the jack, and the rover and the jack move all over the field. And this 3-3-5 defense that Tony White runs, players play everywhere. Giff would be down at the line of scrimmage rushing. He'd play linebacker, or he'd get back and, become a safety or a DB. Those things are part of what are going to make this offense and this team go. And that's part of what, we were missing a little bit last year. What they want to do with this offense and pushing the ball downfield, we weren't capable of that. So what we saw on the field last year isn't necessarily an indication of what they want this offense to be. I think what that was Satterfield and them, they had to go with what we had, and they had to try to play to the abilities of what we had at quarterback. And so that ended up just being short, intermediate pass game. We weren't able to push the ball downfield a lot. We had a couple of big plays, splash plays here and there, but consistently weren't able to open up that deep part of the field because we didn't have a quarterback that could get it to him accurately, read the field accurately. And as soon as, the quarterback saw pressure, it was scramble. Whereas now, big body quarterbacks that can throw the ball, big body quarterbacks with big arms, because he mentioned throwing into the wind and stuff like that, having a guy that can be accurate down the field, throwing into the wind and throwing, when those winds are whipping, still being able to have the velocity on the ball to get the ball down the field without it affecting it too much. And if you watch Dylan's tape, he has a plus arm. His arm talent is crazy, and it's effortless. The way he throws the ball 50, 60 yards down the field, it's effortless. And it's all fundamentals and how he's been developed. Not only that, Daniel Kaelin's a big kid in himself, and credit to them, credit to Daniel Kaelin. He comes back, a lot of Husker fans rooting for Danny Kaelin. So it's good to see him back in the boat. Canceled with Michigan State. So it's nice to have Kaelin back in there, and it's an open competition, but Kaelin also an Elite 11 QB. He can, he's a bigger body, and he can push the ball as well. So, they're looking for more because Satterfield runs a pro style, these pro style type of quarterbacks. And that's what we have now. Last year it was a lot of the running quarterbacks. It seems like they want to get a little bit of away from so much running the quarterback, and you have to. You're going to get banged up like our quarterbacks did last year. They're going to fumble. They're going to do that. So it's one of those things where you want a guy who's, pass first, and then if nothing is there, get what you can and run. That's not to say they won't implement the option still. I'm sure they will. These quarterbacks can move. Dylan is athletic, but he's a pass first quarterback. You'll see him get pressured in the pocket and he's willing to take the hit to get the throw off. He's not immediately scrambled and putting his eyes, down on the ground so he loses sight of the field. He's always looking up the field, even when he's being taken down. He's still able to push the ball downfield accurately. So that's another thing to point out in this offense. Carter Nelson. We saw the tweet where Matt Rule posted, I can't remember who it was. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on what team it was, but the gif of flipping over the line, old school running back. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. But he tweeted that gif of him flipping over the line. We were wondering what that meant. Well, he was talking about, Carter Nelson specifically. He's like, Carter Nelson, the tight end, he's a type of guy that they want to be able to hand the ball off to in 4th and 1 and him jump over the line. Positionless players. Again, that is the biggest point of emphasis for him. Ja'Cory Barney, played wideout and quarterback. And I'll get into some of the other guys that we flipped and kind of their athletic profile and stuff like that. But he's very, very much wanting guys that have athletic lineages, whether it be, their sons of former players or their relatives, play in different sports. Oh yeah, Walter Payton. Sorry, Troy. I have ADHD, so stuff really doesn't click sometimes when I just kind of brush over it. So it's really out of sight, out of mind, no object permanence in here. So I appreciate that. But yeah, anyway, so it's one of those things where he's looking for these guys with athletic profiles, and brothers and sisters that also played are very common in a lot of the guys that he's been recruiting. So he also mentioned the need for competition, bringing in competition and not apologizing for guys coming in, and like Daniel Kalen, not apologizing for the fact that he was able to bring Raiola in. He wants guys that accept that and enjoy that competition and embrace that competition. And, that's part of what Daniel Kalen did. And that's part of what's going to give this staff confidence. And Daniel Kalen is he's a Husker through and through, and he's going to fight and he's going to battle and he's going to claw and he's going to come in there and he's going to try to win the starting job as well. And it's not completely out of the picture. He's a, borderline 4-star kid, Elite 11 quarterback. We do, of course, think that Raiola will win the job, but that remains to be seen. But the fact that he is a big proponent on nobody's jobs are given, they're all earned. And one of the things that bothered us a lot with Scott Frost was he really stuck with the guys that he liked. It didn't seem like there was much of a open competition. He had the guys that he liked. He stuck with those guys. They didn't really come off the field and get benched. He stuck with the guys he likes. And Matt Rule's philosophy is a little bit different. If you're playing better than the guy next to you, you're going to see the field. If you're not making mistakes and you're practicing the right way and you're doing things the right way and you're working hard, he is going to make sure that you see the field. And that is how, you get a team developed. You have to get these guys in competition. If you promise them the job, they're going to get complacent. They're going to stop working as hard. These guys need to know that each year my job is on the line. I need to work hard as I can this offseason to make sure I get it back. And, again, it's evident in the fact that not only we bringing guys in, but we're not losing players. So a lot of those guys are already, the philosophy's kind of already built in and that culture is kind of already kind of there. So here I'll get into a few of the guys that were kind of, late potential flips in the day. There was 3. It was, like I said, it was a very, very drama-free National Signing Day, which is good. We had Javonte Jean-Baptiste situation in Snow Day in 2016, I think it was, where he was set to commit. The Snow Day delayed his National Signing Day. Ohio State reached out and somehow they were able to flip him last second Hail Mary. So nothing like that. It was a very drama-free, which is good. And it was quiet in a lot of ways. But Vincent Shavers, okay. Vincent Shavers was one really excited about. a two-way player. He played linebacker and running back. Again, one of those multiple positionless type of players, because he also mentioned that on the defensive side. These guys, defensive backs, and Vincent Shavers is a linebacker, 9 defensive backs in this class. But he mentioned some of these safeties, putting on size and moving up to linebacker. Again, don't focus too much on the positions right now, because, a lot of these big body safeties and stuff like that might shift up and play linebacker as they, put some size on and stuff like that. They're going to bring these guys in. The cornerbacks, he likes the taller, rangy guys. Amari Sanders, 6'2", Vincent Shavers, 6'1", 205 as a linebacker, already pretty solid build. Amari Sanders, also a dual sport athlete. 2022 was his first year playing high school football. So the development for him there, these guys are all 3 stars. So him being his high school football first year, 2022, the development there, and even he's a 3-star, the development there, potential, the upside, the ceiling is crazy. Another one, Larry Tarver. Larry Tarver, 5'11", 165. He was a wide receiver, punt returner, kick returner, a track athlete. So he wants to be strong, physical, and then also have these guys that are quick and fast, and team speed on defense is something that he did mention. But in the Big Ten, you also have to have a lot of power. And I think that's why a lot of these guys are going to be just mixing around all over the place situationally and in packages, depending on what is, what the situation is. And we've seen the rotations be like that last year, where they would rotate guys in on certain situations and stuff like that. So all of these guys are going to have opportunities to play and play quickly. Last year, looking at the 2023 class and how many of those guys got important playing time, a lot more of those top guys from the 2023 class got playing time than the guys in 2022, 2021, those classes. So he's not afraid to bring these young guys in, these true freshman guys in, and play them immediately if they prove themselves. Moving forward over into portal edition, Bly Hill, he's a size and athleticism in his family, athletic lineage again. Cornerback from Maryland. So, another one where it seemed to be the trend of the day, these dual sport athletes or people with lineage in sports. And Braylon Jacobs, an offensive line recruit who was Dylan Raiola's teammate at Buford, Georgia, got an offer last week. And he is the son of former New York Giants running back Brandon Jacobs. We got Willis McGahee, the 4th. This has been one of the biggest key trends that I've noticed in his recruiting. We'll get into a little bit of kind of who looking forward into the next, the actual National Signing Day coming up. The big story of yesterday, outside of just the recruiting, is Dante Dowdle. He, over at Oregon, 2023 running back, one of, a top 10 running back in the 2023 class, didn't play much in 2023 for Oregon, but he was, averaged over 5 yards per carry and, in limited time, but, averaging over 5 yards per carry and then seeing the field as a true freshman running back is big. And so he's in the portal and he's going to be visiting on January 6th. So there's a key name to watch, because there's not a ton of names that are going to be added to this class. That's one of the things that we need to, or being added to this team. Right now, it's become a game of numbers, and Nebraska is still over on numbers. So it's not one of those things where they can just bring a bunch of guys in, because there has to be, some filter out. And if you like a lot of these guys, then it becomes a problem of who's going to go out, how they're going to go out, how this is going to work. So don't expect too much of a crazy emphasis on the actual National Signing Day coming up, which probably bodes well for us, because the attention won't be diverted to trying to get 10 people onto campus. They can really focus on Dante Dowdle and getting him in here and bringing him on board and really kind of putting the full court press on a guy like that. similar to what they had to do with Dylan, the fact that they were able to still flip these 3 guys, Shavers, Sanders, and Tarver, this late in the game, when they had all of their focus seemingly on Dylan was still pretty impressive. It's not very often that you are looking at 3 guys that are potential flips on National Signing Day and you flip all 3 of them just that easy, especially when you brought in a 5-star, that week prior and all of your focus was on him. If y'all can hear my dog in the background, I'm sorry, I have a German Shepherd. He doesn't ever shut up. So, another one to watch, and I'm kind of hit or miss on this one, and it seems like the fan base is a little bit the same. Jordan Seaton, out of Colorado, was supposed to sign on Colorado. He was the one I wanted to Skip Bayless's show and was like, if you ain't coming to Colorado, why not? Didn't actually sign with Colorado, mentioned that Raiola was the last one to DM him and stuff like that. And that was posted. But to me, just saying like, yeah, Dylan was the last one to DM me, there's no date set for him to come visit or anything like that. So those speculation type of things, I try to avoid those and try to stick with what we have concrete evidence of. Let's look at kind of the speculation with Casey Thompson. And I know somebody mentioned in the comments Casey Thompson a little bit ago. All of the speculation on Casey Thompson, and I know there's a lot of correlation and there's a lot of things that hint at a certain thing, but it was put out today. I believe On3 posted it that, and I believed this to be true. I said this on the last stream that I don't think it makes sense for Casey Thompson to come here. I don't think it makes sense for Casey Thompson to come back. First off, the way things ended previously, with him transferring out, it was weird. We brought Sims in and it was supposed to be an open competition. All of a sudden, before spring, Casey Thompson transfers out. I don't necessarily think they're going to bring him back over to play. That, he may become over as a graduate assistant later or something like that. Who knows? That might be on the table. The fact that he is there, hanging out with Gabe Ervin on campus, posting shoes that weren't even Adidas, and stuff like that. I don't think it makes sense for him to come back and take reps from your Kalins and your Raiolas. And another thing about Casey Thompson, why he did play well here, a lot of what Casey Thompson did was Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer, had 1,200 yards, something like that. And Casey Thompson had under 3,000 passing yards. So the majority of what he did was that deep ball to Trey Palmer. And Casey Thompson, and I don't want to knock him, but a lot of that was a product of Trey Palmer and just how electric and good Trey Palmer actually was. So, we look back at that offense and we look at the explosiveness and we automatically go to the quarterback position because that was what we struggled with so much this year. And we're like, okay, well, our quarterback play was like that last year. We have a defense now. If we go back and get Casey Thompson, everything's going to work out. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think just watching it in Casey Thompson, the way he operates, he's good, but he's not what's going to take Nebraska to the next level. Dylan Raiola is. I think the best thing for Nebraska is to get Dylan Raiola on the field and let the nation start seeing what he's capable of. So these kids, from other, these wide receiver recruits, these skill position players can see what Nebraska is putting on the field. And then that way we can get these guys for the 25 and 26 cycles based on the performance on the field. The biggest thing about getting Dylan in the boat, to me, was the fact that it was going to be very, very difficult with the way the offense looked last year to recruit offensive skill position players. It would have been hard to say, hey, you want to come play in this offense that, averaged 10 points a game, wasn't able to, expand the deep ball. These guys got a future to worry about. Some of them want to go to the NFL. If they're not in an offense that's putting up numbers, what is the likelihood that they're going to come, whether they're getting paid or not? And so that was one of the key things about Dylan coming in, was it put some excitement into the offense that wasn't there. And that is extremely imperative. And we talked about Dylan as a peer recruiter, bringing him over as a peer recruiter. He didn't have a lot of time, in this 2024 class, of course. So, but moving on to 2025 and 2026, and Danny Kalen was another one that's a huge peer recruiter. He helped a lot with Carter Nelson. That stuff is going to manifest in the 25 and 26 class. And I think having Dylan Raiola see the field early is going to help tremendously, especially if he comes out and he is successful, which I think we all expect him to be. There's a lot of times where people are talking about true freshmen coming in and playing immediately and how it's not feasible or this. If you look at the last, few years, and it's not just looking at true freshmen, we're talking about a 5-star. We're talking about the number one quarterback in the class. Okay. It's not just any true freshman. So just floating out, being fearful of a true freshman starting, he's not just any true freshman. He is a elite talent, and he has, all of the skills to be great at the collegiate level and impact this team immediately. So I think Raiola will be the guy. And I think they will mix Daniel Kalen in there for different packages. I think they have a plan for Kalen as well to get some looks in this offense as well. So we'll see how that goes. And then, talking about the lineman and his philosophy on the lineman, again, talked about recruiting and development, but he really wants the old school, powerful, explosive, Nebraska linemen, those Big Ten linemen. And winning in the trenches is obviously a big focus of the Big Ten, and this staff knows that. Looking forward at the 2000, I'll go over your little bit of your comments after just these numbers here. My last point. Looking at 2025 and the offers, just looking at the offers that went out. Offensive line had the most with 31, defensive line 30. Well, I'm sorry, wide receiver had 38. For obvious reasons, our wide receiver room very, very thin. But with injuries and stuff like that, it's one of those things you can never have enough. And they're also trying to recruit a lot of their guys. And here, Nebraska really lacking that veteran X receiver. Malachi can be that guy, but very, inexperienced, and we saw him in limited action last year, but Malachi can be that guy. So wide receiver, 38 offers out in 2025 for wide receivers, 31 for offensive line, 30 for defensive line, and 28 for defensive back. You also see a lot of these guys that are recruited as athletes. I think 18 of them in the class are recruited as athletes, and that goes back to the positionless players, where he wants these guys who are going to come in at athletes. He will move them around and see where they play the best, and that's where they will sit. It's the same philosophy he had in 2023. Again, with recruiting those positions heavy, and then Texas and Florida being the top two states that he's recruiting. He mentioned sending Evan Cooper down, getting real heavy in South Florida this year and stuff like that. So Florida seems to be a big point of emphasis going forward, but Texas seems to be kind of the big cog in the wheel that they want to get rolling, because, he's like, get 5 or 6 guys from the state of Texas, look a few years down the road. Now you got 30, 35 guys on your roster from the state of Texas. And, it's this compounding effect. And that also goes back to his, long-term plan. He mentioned in the Pat McAfee show that college is where he belongs. We all believe that to be the case with him. And he mentioned it, college is where he belongs. So I don't think it's one of those things where Nebraska is going to be losing him. He's a younger coach in the grand scheme of things, and he's got a young staff. And I think, without a doubt, this National Signing Day is probably the most important one Nebraska has had in as long as I can remember. I was born in 1990, so I didn't really get I don't really have a ton of memories of, 95, 96, 97. I have a memory of it's an Eric Crouch jersey back there, not a Scott Frost jersey. Eric Crouch, my favorite Nebraska quarterback ever. I have a bad memory of the 2001 National Championship game as a kid, but I digress. That wasn't fun, but yeah. So this was one of the bigger national signing, of course, signing day as young as it is, but in a long time. And you've heard it talked about how important Raiola is to this team going forward, and it can't be understated. And as a Nebraska fan base, we should be so ecstatic and optimistic for the future. And what a change that was coming off of 3 weeks ago. All the conversation has gone, all the heat's gone off of Satterfield. The heat's gone, all of the people that it seems to be that people have kind of reset and are like, okay, well, now we have a quarterback. We have another year of development. We have, a pretty good class of wide receivers coming in. Let's see what they can do with these guys now. Let's see what, get these guys in here and see how they can develop and how they can operate. We saw so much development from the true freshmen on the field this year. Nebraska had the most true freshmen, I think, that saw meaningful playing time on the season, and those guys developed over the course of the year. I can't wait to see what they look like with an off season. Okay. So that kind of goes over, my overarching thoughts on National Signing Day. I'm going to kind of go through some of y'all's comments here and see if we can get in. Dylan's type of caliber player raise the whole room up. Yeah, exactly. And who knows? Maybe they will go after a transfer quarterback now that Chuba has kind of left the fold. So we'll see how that develops in the coming days, and if they do schedule any visits for January. But I have no idea. I apologize. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. I'd be very interested to see, but I would imagine there's probably, they're going to want to bring another guy in. I would imagine it's probably not going to be a big name, but somebody who is experienced and could come in and be a leader but also step in and play if need be. What kind of pressure is paying a player $1 million or more put on the coach staff? Players? Yeah, I think it just very much depends on the school, right? You have a lot of these schools that don't have big money, that don't have these donors. It's a little bit more of a stress on them, I believe, because if you are a small school with not a lot of money and you put all your NIL into one player and it doesn't pan out, you're really setting yourself back a lot. And I have no idea why it's happening. You're really setting yourself back a lot. So Nebraska having the donors they do and stuff like that, I think is a little less pressure as far as the paying of these players goes, but it still does put pressure on them. Yeah, in a big way, it does. More so, you're already feeling pressure at Nebraska as a head coach. You're really feeling pressure as a head coach at Nebraska as it sits, anyways. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that I think it's very dependent on the situation, very dependent on the coach. But Nebraska has the perks of these donors and big money and stuff like that. That's going to help tremendously. Is Casey coming back? Yeah. See, I don't think he'll be coming back. If he does come back, I think it'll be later as a QB. I believe he was on campus for graduation or something like that. Rural recruits Texas, successful recruited Texas, Bowie, Texas divided up in zones. Assistant had his zone only state. Yeah. And that was kind of what made Nebraska really successful in the Big 12 days. Was Texas was a pipeline state, and losing that was huge. And when we moved to the Big 10, we kind of lost Texas as a pipeline state. Bo, as you mentioned, tried to bring it back, but then you had Scott Frost going, you had Mike Riley's Calabraska, you had Scott Frost's Florabraska, and these gimmicky little things trying to get out of these states to get these specific type of players. What I like about Rule is he's not focusing on one state. He's focusing on multiple states, and he's also focusing on what each player brings from that state. He mentioned the mentality of the players in Florida, just playing loose, relaxed, and having fun. So he has it all the way down to a science of the type of player that he wants from each individual state. And, the way Matt Rule is running this right now is he's very, very structured. He dots his I's and crosses his T's like nobody I've seen. So this system is in place. And this system's not going to change. What you see today from this National Signing Day and the process is what we're going to probably see going forward and what we need to get used to going forward. Won't Chubb have to sit because already uses one transfer? That sure, they have all the apologize for this camera. I have no idea. And why isn't an Iowa picture popping up? That's fun. They have all kinds of waivers and stuff. We'll see how that works. We'll see how that works out. What's up, Cliff? I appreciate you hopping in here, man. Thanks everybody for hopping in here. If y'all don't mind leaving a like, I hate to ask for likes and stuff like that, but that's the only way YouTube likes us. and helps us out. So if y'all don't mind just giving a like on the stream, I know I hate when people do that too, but it's just part of it's the nature of the beast of this YouTube stuff. Nebraska's rank in the 24 class, I believe, was 17, 18. Depending on the recruiting, depending on where you look, which recruiting site you look at. If he got his degree, won't have to sit. Rank 17th. Okay, Kyle, 17th. How do you forget Walter Bay? Yeah, I know. I'm a young buck, but like I said, ADHD. Blame that. Brett, yeah, I touched on that. Sorry about that, Troy. My apologies. Jack of all trades, master at none. Thanks for the info. Appreciate it. How many scholarships Nebraska over the limit right now? I thought the Big Ten had a +2 over signing limit. So as of it really depends on a couple of these players that are still undecided, but I know Nebraska's still in the 95, 96 range, I believe. So, not crazy. We were in the hundreds before. Nothing too crazy, but still a little bit over. So we'll see. We'll see. Mine barks, the wind blows. Yeah. And then I got this one right here. She's just chill. Look at her. She's just hanging out, minds her own business. Colorado's huge problems. They want a mercenary coach who went after. Yeah. The Colorado philosophy was trying to I am getting so perturbed with this. Trying to fix what they had overnight. It's a completely different. I don't necessarily think it's going to be successful. We'll see. But Dylan Raiola starting period. Yeah. Till he doesn't. Dylan Raiola and Danny of Nebraska QB's Nebraska has. Heinrich is going to a Taysom Hill role. Yeah. And we saw evidence of that early on in the season. You saw him go out and play on a package where he caught a pass. So I believe Heinrich is going to you can see the field in multiple different avenues, another positionless type of player, because he's a football player. Like you said, Taysom Hill style. He wants to go out there and make plays. He's got good instincts. He just wasn't a great quarterback. But he does have value to this team. And we saw flashes of his value to this team. The dude, top end speed at one point, one of his runs was 22 miles an hour, which is elite. So, big body, big guy who can come in on short yarded situations, so excited to see what they do with him. Any word on what happened to Greg? So not sure if Greg, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. If Greg's going to be back or so, but don't want to touch on that too terribly much until I know for sure. Yeah, don't want to get into that too much. Sorry about that. Get some recruits and don't lose Dylan. Casey's role at UNL post-grad studies. Yeah, exactly. Exact same purpose message on social media. Dylan Raiola after. Yeah, and also I believe that was the cover photo on Adam DeMichelle's Twitter as well. But again, speculation. If I fell for every speculated thing that happened, everything would happen. Every player that entered the portal, Nebraska fans think they're coming here, etc. So Casey's a Clipboard guy now, 7th year emergency QB. Yeah, that's how I see him. If it comes over, I believe it would be like a grad transfer somewhere on the staff. I believe you enroll at multiple universities, you lose financial aid eligibility, scholarship qualifies as that. Yeah. I think Nebraska's 9-3 this year. Yeah, and the beginning of the schedule is very. I think it's very key that the beginning of the schedule is a little bit more favorable. It'll give these guys and these young guys a chance to come in here and kind of develop, and we can see some of these guys on the field maybe against some of these teams that we should beat, and we get to take a look at them early, and then that way by the end of the season, when we get to that late slate of that brutal slate in the last 5 games, then we have an idea and these guys are developed to a certain point. Nebraska's 7-0. I mean, very possible, but 7-0. I mean, 7-0 and crashing back down to earth is still 7 wins. So, let's see. The heat has never gone off the OC. No, and what I mean is like I think it's given people a little bit more patience in Satterfield, and that's why I'm trying to exercise patience in what his offensive systems used to be and what they have been in the past, because that's what we can expect, going forward. is that pro style offense, huddle up, get big, get physical, use your tight ends, positionless players, but also push the ball down the field. He loves to push the ball down the field, and now we have a quarterback that can do that. Need a QB coach, yeah. A lot of speculation on that too. Adam DeMichelle, Jake Peets. So we'll see. Satterfield, the most approved. You don't fire, don't fire Satterfield. Roll keeps a band together. Take Satterfield. Yeah. Yeah. Tony White. And it's crazy that Tony White got bumped up to 1.6 million, and that's still probably less than Dylan's getting paid. Kind of crazy. Chubby is a grad. He can go anywhere. Train Chris for you. Yeah. So that's kind of my overarching thoughts on National Signing Day and what I think, going forward we can expect from Matt Rule and company, and just, signs for optimism, reasons for optimism, and things like that. And, I think it's one of those things where Nebraska fans finally feel that we are trending in the right direction. The rest of the country is starting to take notice that Nebraska is trending in the right direction. A lot of the national conversation is on Nebraska, even though for such a irrelevant team as some of these fan bases would like to call us, very much relevant on the national stage. You see Nebraska is a talking point of a lot of these places, Nebraska, big National Signing Day winners, et cetera. And so that's something we haven't had in a while. We've been the point of a national conversation, but, it's like, okay, when will Nebraska get back? What is it going to take for Nebraska to get back? And it's been less of that and more so of, oh, Nebraska might be back, and the conversation shifting, which is good for us moving forward. So with that being said, I'm going to sign over here because I don't know why my camera's freaking out. So I'm going to go troubleshoot my camera. I would like to stay a little bit longer, but thank you to everybody hopping in here. We have some of the people that normally hop in, Kyle, Troy, Never Mind Me, et cetera. A lot of you guys that hop in here and hang out with us every week. I appreciate everybody who, watches the channel, likes the videos, pushes our content. We can't do it without y'all. Thanks for all the kind words to me and welcome me into the channel and stuff like that. And, one thing off topic here, I do want to point out, as the holiday season comes around and, everybody be careful, pay attention to your mental health, don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people if you're struggling and stuff like that. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. And it comes around during the holiday season a lot, it flares up. So, be mindful of that. Enjoy time with your family, be present with your family. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to whatever you celebrate, but, make sure you take care of your mind, take care of your family, and enjoy the holidays, man. It's one of those things that sometimes we take these moments for granted. We get lost in the hustle bustle of life. And so just take the time to be present. And if you need help and if you find yourself struggling, in these months and the hard times, reach out, talk to somebody. And like I said, it's a little off topic, but it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So just wanted to put that message out there. I hope everybody has a great, holiday season. We will be back on Tuesday. I'm probably gonna, I might post something in between now and then. We'll see what happens in the coming days. So Tuesday live stream, we will be there, me and Mark, for sure. 7 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Central. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody who joined me here. And yeah, we'll see you on Tuesday. So peace out.